Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today's block is called Christmas Star. And this is a 16-inch block. It has a lot of pieces in it. And the units though are pretty simple. We have flying geese units and half square triangles. But it does take a while to put together because of the number of pieces in it. So if you try this one, just take your time, have a little patience, and I think this will go together for you pretty easily. So I hope you'll stay with me, and I'll show you how to make the Christmas star block. Okay, here are the fabrics you'll need for the Christmas star block. For A, you'll need one 4.5-inch square. B is 8 2.5-inch squares. C is 4 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. D is 4 3-inch squares. E is 4 2.5-inch squares. F is 8 2.5-inch squares. G is 4 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. H is 4 3-inch squares. I is 4 2.5-inch squares. J is 8 2.5-inch squares. K is 4 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. E is 8 3-inch squares, and M is 12 2.5-inch squares. So lots and lots of pieces for this block, but this is a really pretty block and I think you'll love the way it turns out. So I'm going to adjust the camera and we'll get started sewing. Okay, first thing we're going to do is make flying geese units. We're going to make two different sets, and in the pattern I have them marked as, I have them marked as set A and set B, and that's because they use two different colorways. In set A, we're going to use C rectangles and B squares, and then set B, we're going to use G rectangles and E squares. So we're going to make 4 flying geese units with all of these. So I'm going to start with the B and the C. And when you look at the pattern, you know, there are ways to make more than one flying geese unit at a time that you can use that method, or you can use any method you want. What I usually do is I draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of the square, and that diagonal line is going to go from the top center to the bottom right hand corner. I lay them on top of each other and then stitch directly on that line. And there may even be a way to do this with foundation paper. I don't know for certain. I have foundation paper for half square triangles, but that's it. So I don't use foundation paper for any other unit. Anyway, I'm going to trim off this outer edge, press it back, and we have this, and then I'll sew a square to the other side. So let me go ahead and press this. Okay, so that's all pressed, and now I'm going to take a square, and this time the diagonal line is going to go from the top center to the bottom left hand corner. So let me line up my raw edges here and stitch that. And I'm going to trim this outer corner here, trim that off, and then I'll press, and then this flying geese unit will be done. Okay, this is a set A flying geese unit. I think in the pattern I'm showing it this way, but it's a flying geese unit. So I'm going to finish the rest of these, and then I'll work on the second set, and then we'll move on to the next step. Actually, there are 3 sets of flying geese units. The third set is the K rectangles and the J squares. So I'm going to be making a lot of flying geese units, so I'm going to chain sew these together to help save a little bit of time. There are a lot of pieces to this block, but the units aren't hard, so we're going to make this as easy as possible. Okay, the second set are made with the G and the F squares. The G rectangles and the F squares. I think I said G rectangles and the E squares, and the E squares are for the corner unit. So hopefully I didn't confuse anyone, but let's get this started. Okay, these are the set B, we have 4 of those. And then set C, we're going to use the K rectangles and the J squares. And make 4 flying geese units from them. So we have those flying geese units. Okay, now we're going to make the center star of the block, and that's going to take the A square, and then it's going to take set A of the flying geese units. And we need the E squares right here. So we're going to make the top and the bottom row first. So we need 2 of the flying geese units and these 4 E squares. And we're going to sew an E square to both ends of those flying geese units. So we're going to start by doing this. So we're lining up the short end of the flying geese unit to the square. So there's one, and here's the second one. Okay, I'm going to clip them apart and then sew a square to the opposite side of the flying geese unit. press those E-squares back. Okay, so here we go. We've got these two. And then with the A square, we're going to sew the last two flying geese units to the sides, to two opposite sides, and we're going to match the pink colors here. So this will make the star legs. But anyway, here is that middle section. So I'm going to press these towards the A square. Okay, so here we go. And then here's how I press those. And now I'm going to sew these units to the top and the bottom, matching up the pink colors. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the seams. I'm going to nest them together and pin those. Okay, so here is our star unit. So I'm going to put that aside. Okay, we're going to make half square triangles with the H and the L squares, so half square triangles. And you're going to have 4 extra L squares. I'm going to set them aside because we're going to use those as corners. So you only need 4 of the L squares. I'm going to make 8 half square triangles. So we'll put these right sides together. You're going to need to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of your L squares. So I'm going to do that. Okay, now we're going to make half square triangles with H squares and 4 of the L squares. So you want to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of your L squares. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from both sides of that drawn line. Cut these apart, and we're going to need to trim these down so that they measure 2.5 inches square. These are going to be a little bit over large. If you want to get closer to the 2.5 inches square, you can cut your squares at 2 7/8. What I find is that then they're too small, so I like to use 3-inch squares and then trim them down to 2.5 after I cut them apart. So I'm going to trim them and then press them, trim off the dog ears, and then we'll move on. Okay, so there are all those half square triangles. Now we need to make another set of half square triangles with D squares and then the other 4 L squares. So I'm going to do the same thing. Right sides together and sew on both sides of that drawn line, 1/4 inch away. Okay, so I have all the D&L half square triangles done. I've gone ahead and clipped a marker on my D&L half square triangles and my H&L half square triangles, because if I don't, I'm going to get them mixed up and I'm not going to like the result. Next thing we need to do is to make the corner units, and on this pattern the corner units are made with the H&L half square triangles, so they're the darker fabric. So if you'll notice in this block, you've got your star, and then the color around that is light, and then the outer color is dark. So here, this is the light color and this is the dark. So we're going to do the corner squares, corner units, which means I need the H and the L. And I also need the I squares and the M squares. So I squares and M squares. We've got 4 I squares, so we'll need 4 M squares. These will be the ends. So I'm going to lay this out and show you what I'm doing here. Be a lot easier. I'm going to go out a little bit. Okay, so the corner units, I'm going to take the H squares and they're going to face in towards each other, the colors are. And the outer corner is going to be an M square, and the inner corner, which here will be an I square. So you've seen these kind of units in quite a few blocks. So this is what we're making right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and stack all the pieces up on top of each other. And so I have 4 of each. So I'm going to make these units. So I'm going to sew them together in rows. So I'll have 2 rows, and then I'll sew the 2 rows together. Okay, there are the top rows. Okay, here are the other ones. So we're going to sew all of these rows together. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the seam. I've got the seams pressed so that they will nest. Okay, so here are all of those units. We got 4 of them. So now we need to make the side units. So let me set these corner units aside. And we're going to need the D half square triangles and the M squares, and we're going to make 2 different sets of these. So I'm going to split these into 4. So we have 2 sets of 4. And once again, I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing down here. So we're going to put the half square triangles facing out on both of these. So the whites are in the center, and then we're going to sew an M square on top, just like that. So we need 2 separate sets of those, and we're not going to sew the sets together. We're just going to sew the M squares to the half square triangles. Okay, so we have the mirror imaged units here. So we have those. So now we need to go back to the flying geese units, and we have both of these colorways here. And we're going to sew them so that the dark blue on this one, they're going together. So they're actually going to point this way. They're going to the lighter color is going to point towards the center of the block. Darker color is going to be on the outside. So we're going to sew those together. Okay, so here are flying geese units, and now we need to sew these units, the half square triangle units, to them. So I'm also going to adjust the camera so you can see how they are going to be placed. Okay, you have the flying geese units. I'm going to turn this way here. Just going to stack them all on top of each other, flying geese units, and then the half square triangles, and we're going to put them this way. It may seem a little odd. You would think maybe you'd want to do it this way, but that'll give you a completely different look. So we're going to do this. So I have the flying geese units pressed towards the dark flying geese, and these half square triangle units are pressed towards the white square. So those seams will all nest. So I'm going to sew all these together, and we'll have all 4 sides, and then we can start sewing the block together. Okay, so here are the side units. So we need 2 side units to go to opposite sides of the center star. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those. Okay, so here is that. I need to press this yet. Okay, so we're going to sew a corner unit to both sides of these side units and follow the diagram for your placement. But I will zoom out again so that you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so here is how that row, the top and the bottom row, doing exactly the same. You're just going to rotate one for the bottom. So corner unit to each side unit, and you'll have that done just right. So let's adjust the camera and do some more sewing. Okay, and I'm going to pin the seams. I have all the seams nested, so pinning will go easier. But you can pin or press your seams open or to the opposite side of what I'm doing, whatever works for you. There we go. So here's the completed block. You could use a little bit more concentrated pressing in a few spots, but there it is. It wasn't difficult. It's half square triangles and flying geese units. The issue is that there's a lot of pieces, and you've got 1, 2, 3 different flying geese units, so you have to keep those in mind and keep them in order. And then you have 2 different half square triangles, so watch your color placement and feel free to change things around however you want. But this is the Christmas star block. Okay, that is it for the Christmas star block. So here is my block. I used pink, teal, and blue. You could change the colors, of course, to anything you want. So anyway, I hope you'll give this block a try. Now, if you like this video, please click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.